Hey, I'm back 1 month post-mastectomy. I've had my second mastectomy and it was a prophylactic one. My first mastectomy was just about a year ago, and so I'm very well healed from that, but I did have a revision on my first side as well this time. All of my scars are really well healed and they're really nicely blending into my natural skin tone now, so I feel almost back to normal. Recovery is going really well. I think mostly it's a lifestyle adjustment at this point. So came right back out into the world very suddenly 1 month post-mastectomy when I went down to Southern California to be trained as a research advocate in the breast cancer community with the National Breast Cancer Coalition, and I have a video that will be coming out next week on that experience, so stay tuned for that. But that experience actually forced me to become more comfortable in a professional setting than I normally would. I live rurally, so I don't get out into the professional world or the urban world very often. So it was really good to be immersed in that setting and just learn what was comfortable for me in my body, what clothing was comfortable, how I felt about bras or not wearing bras. I was in a breast cancer community context, so pretty safe place to explore. And what I ended up doing, even though it was Southern California and pretty shishy environment, I ended up feeling pretty comfortable going without a bra and letting my asymmetry show. I realize that is probably not the norm across all survivors and thrivers. Most people will probably want to not let any asymmetry be too obvious. Mine is very obvious when I wear fitted clothing. It's hard to miss because I have a Goldilocks mastectomy, which left me with an A cup on this side and almost nothing on this side, with a lot of concavity over on the side here. So wearing what I'm wearing today, you don't see my asymmetry as much. But down in California, I didn't wear these kind of baggy, informal clothes as much. I wore a couple of looser fitting, nicer clothing pieces, and then mostly pretty fitted pieces. And just tried that out and challenged myself. Most of what this season of 1 month post-mastectomy up until probably maybe 3 months post-mastectomy is about for me is challenging myself not to get set in any one rut or routine, because after my first mastectomy I started wearing a prosthetic very soon after, and just to feel more normal and average and less obvious in my recovery state, I wanted to wear my prosthetic a lot, and I got into that routine and it became something I couldn't break out of as easily when I wanted to. And so I'm trying to challenge myself to be not stuck on any one way of being until I know for sure what I prefer. And I'm slowly learning what I prefer. I think for me, not having a bra on is much preferred. Not having a prosthetic is much preferred. I've tried the prosthetic in different bras, and it's a lightweight one, and it moves around a lot, and the bra moves up and up and up. And I've said that in many videos at this point. That happened with my larger, heavier prosthetic as well, but it really happens with the lighter, smaller prosthetic. And so I've kind of ruled that out already, but I'm trying to figure out what I want, if I want to just go au naturel all the time, or if I want to use, I guess they're called pasties. I've been playing with these, something that's kind of new on the scene, and this is my favorite brand, Magic Curves Pasties. They're silicone breast covers, I guess is what you call them. They used to be more like a nipple cover, but they're getting larger and larger, and it's kind of cool to be here experiencing this at this time in history when they're so plentiful and there's so many different options of these things out there. It's also really nice because you're supposed to put silicone over your scars at this stage of recovery. After about a month, you're allowed to put silicone strips over your scars, and these count as silicone strips. They keep the moisture in really well, and that's what the silicone is meant to do in that setting for scar improvement. So I'm playing with these also as kind of a natural healing for my scars, and so it's covering both of those bases, both the aesthetic part of learning about my asymmetry and how to maybe mask it when I want to, and healing my scars at the same time. So I'll show you a couple of pasties that I've gotten out of the package and that I've actually worn. The concept here is that they're really sticky on the back side, and they stay sticky. You can wash them with soap, and after you've washed them with soap and they've dried, the stickiness comes back. Don't ask me how that works, but it's really nice. It's a great technology. This one is very close to what my Goldilocks side looks like. Mine is a lot flatter. It's not as convex as this is. However, this is not a good match for my body because my body is flat and this is very cupped. It is very, very concave on the middle. And so when I put this on, it doesn't adhere. The middle part doesn't adhere. I have to like kind of smash it in, which would be fine, but then it unsmashes and pulls itself back out because it's kind of stiff and it's got its own form that it wants to pull back to. So what I've thought about doing, because this is such a good match for me in terms of its shape and size, is I'm thinking about cutting it so that it can spread out a little more. So maybe I'll report back and tell you how that goes. I haven't tried that yet. I didn't want to destroy it because it's kind of nice and pristine in this form, but it's not working for me. If I wear this out without a bra over it, it will come undone while I'm bending over because my shoulder goes forward and my skin kind of pushes it out and it just wants to come off. So that has not worked. However, this more shallow one that is much smaller and is less cupped is working very nicely. However, it's not very thick, so it's not going to give me any kind of volume in terms of providing less concavity over here. So it's not really doing its intended job unless you just want it to be able to make your shirts fall a little bit more smoothly and naturally against your skin, which it does do that for me. So that's something. I tried doubling these up and I did that for a couple of days and that was fine. It worked well, like having two of these one on top of another. It just isn't, quite the right shape to match the side. So I'm just still playing with them. But again, I'm really grateful that I have these to play with because there are so many different ones in different shapes and colors and sizes and thickness. And then the cuppedness is also a major factor. I definitely won't purchase one with this amount of cuppedness again, unless I find that cutting it is a solution to that problem. My goal for these is to not have to wear a bra with them. So that's the whole point of them, is to be able to have something that will stay on without a bra. And so far, only this one is staying on without a bra. And this one isn't a very good match for my skin color, so that's why I got this. But they're pretty cheap. This is normal retail price is $12. At TJ Maxx it was $6. So pretty easy investment. I'm not going to get reimbursed by my insurance. I don't need to because it's such a good price in the first place. But it's fun to have the ability to play with, and I think it's probably been just my extended family members that I've been the most uncomfortable around. Just walking around with a nice tight-fitting tank top. It's been in the hundreds here, so it's been really hot, even here in the Northwest where it's pretty mild most summers. So I have been wearing very tightly fitted shirts and letting my asymmetry show, and getting past the first couple encounters with I would say more body-conscious individuals in my family and acquaintances is the hardest part of all. And I think once I've had those first couple of encounters, it won't be stressful, or I won't be self-conscious in the end. And I'm really proud of myself for pushing past that uncomfortability, the awkwardness socially. You definitely learn who in your life is more body-conscious because you do feel who notices that you don't have the same size breasts. Even when it's an A and a 0, that's a pretty small thing to notice, but I do feel people noticing at work sometimes even, and at work I hide it a little bit more than I would in my personal life. So I'll talk a little bit about clothes. I'm going to do a separate video on clothes, just a whole video on clothes. So I'm just going to flash a couple of shirts here, and then I'll pose them in my next video, which will be video after next, talking about flat fashion and some of the things I'm learning about the clothing options, mostly shirts and dresses. Pants are still the same, of course. This is my absolute favorite. I did not expect it to be so. It's kind of baggy, but it has kind of a low cut center, And I feel like that having my skin show down to here really distracts from what's going on over here, the asymmetry. I didn't expect to want to distract from my breasts, but it is turning out that I am on occasion wanting to, of course, not draw attention to the asymmetry. That's only natural. Most days I'm not too worried about it, but when I'm in a dressy or a work environment, I like to play with that, the visual kind of distraction element. And this is another one. The high-topped shirts and swimsuits are amazing at distracting from what's going on down here. I think it just draws your eye up a little bit higher, and it provides kind of more like a tent effect. So what breasts you have are going to be pulling the surface of the shirt lower instead of at the edge of it, which tends to be more distracting in my experience. I just bought this shirt yesterday. I'm finding lots of fun linens lately. I love linen, and so I'm really enjoying that that's an option in stores. And this one was on the sale rack at Old Navy just a couple weeks ago. Super fun, really boxy shirt. So you can see it's really wide and not too long. But boxy shirts seem to be really comfy, and they work for me. This one's kind of low cut, so I will not wear this in a professional environment just in case I bend forward and either my pasty will show or my bare breasts will show, depending on what I'm wearing under it. So, because I'm not wearing bras, as I said, I'm not comfortable doing that. There's no need to, and I'm not gonna do it just because other people do it. And then finally, I love this really boxy square-shaped sweatshirt with a kind of a low V-neck. Kind of short again, but very wide. These are small and extra small, so they are built to be just really wide and kind of loose and flowy. So that's the things that I'm liking wearing so far, the things that I feel really good in and that I love my body in as a flatty. And I'm sure I'll continue to discover more. But yeah, I think that it is these kind of shirts, especially the high neck shirts that are a little bit more fitted, they definitely show my flatness. There's no hiding the flatness. It just kind of evens out the asymmetry to have the higher neck with that. So I feel like that's a good compromise. I definitely don't want to hide the fact that I'm flat chested. At this point in my life, I'm pretty good with that and happy to share it with the world. It's just the asymmetry that I'm still kind of getting past psychologically. I've still been writing a lot as a way of kind of merging back into normal life and dealing with the trauma that's residual. Surgeries are traumatic even in the best of times and the best of terms with your surgeons. I had a really good experience this time. It wasn't as traumatic as my first mastectomy by far, but it is still traumatic for your body to go through that and to try to get back to normal and to expect your brain to be on par with where it was before. My brain still isn't back completely, but it did handle a lot of rigorous mental training, really intense training down in La Jolla at Project Lead, where I was studying like 8-9 hours a day about breast cancer biology and research science. So for 6 days in a row, so really could handle quite a bit more than I thought it would, which is really reassuring. And I've been totally confident and competent at work. The kinds of mistakes I make at work are the same kinds of silly mistakes that I made before I had mastectomies and before I underwent anesthesia, so I can't blame it on anesthesia. Everyone makes mistakes every once in a while, so just gotta have some grace for that. So yeah, I'm getting back into normal life, imagining what life post-cancer is going to be looking like for me. I didn't have chemo and radiation, but I feel like I'm in that place where people who do have chemo and radiation emerge into the world finally done with everything. I'm finally done with my 2 surgeries after a year, and I feel like it's a real kind of rebirth situation. You kind of have to face it that way, and maybe other people will want to deny that you're going through that, and that's fine if they have to do that, but for those of people that I feel closest to and the people I rely on in my life, I'm being very honest about the fact that this is a huge transition for me. It's not just a body transition, but it's very mental and psychological. and kind of reevaluating where I'm at, what I want, who I want in my life, and how much I want to work and how much I want to volunteer. Kind of getting back to really what's most important to me, which is great. It's always good to have an opportunity to reevaluate. I think COVID provided that as well. So I'm very much in touch after both COVID and breast cancer with what is important to me and what I want to spend my time doing. And yeah, I'm spending my time pursuing a lot of volunteer roles in the breast cancer community. That's what I'm learning about and thinking about and deciding between for the most part. Still working as a nutritionist part-time, and I'm caring for my parents full-time at the moment because there have been a lot of medical needs with them in the last couple of weeks. So don't have a lot of extra room in my life at the moment, but we're hoping to get things settled with my parents where they're maybe being cared for by other people a little bit more, and hopefully that'll free me up to do a little more volunteering. And I'll share some of that. I think this channel will be more and more vloggy as days go by, because I'll probably be sharing the day-to-day involvement that I'm having in my volunteer roles and projects I'm working on, and hopefully that's of interest to you. Let me know. I'd love to hear if that's of interest to you. I'm still going to be talking about breast cancer, but it'll be more about my volunteer roles. Leading teams on walks this fall. That'll be the first thing I'll do. On the leadership team for a retreat this fall down in San Francisco for International Flat Day. And then after that, I'm going to be starting up some projects for the Lobular Breast Cancer Alliance. Hopefully that's the next big project. Once the fall kind of settles down into late fall, early winter, that's my plan, is to kind of hunker down and start up some new projects. I love starting new projects, and I think that it'll be good to talk about normal life and not just recovery life. So we'll leave it at that for today, and I will see you next week on Sunday talking about what I learned down in La Jolla at Project Lead with the National Breast Cancer Coalition. I really loved that experience, and I can't wait to tell you about it. So I'll see you then. Bye-bye.